Yukon is one of Canada's largest untamed wildernesses, stretching across more than 482,000 square kilometers of mountains, ice fields, and boreal forest, an area larger than Sweden. Yukon is home to barely 48,000 residents. And here's the twist. Nearly 80% of them, over 38,000 people, are packed into a single place, Whitehorse, the territory's capital. That means a city covering just over 400 square kilometers, a sliver of less than 0.1% of Yukon's total land, holds the vast majority of its population. So why does a land this vast hold so few people? Step outside Whitehorse, we will have the answer. Endless wilderness stretches for hundreds of kilometers. This is a land shaped by extremes, where the sun barely sets in summer and barely rises in winter, painting the sky with the aurora borealis for months at a time. Towering peaks, including Canada's highest mountain, rise above massive ice fields that have remained frozen for thousands of years. Wild rivers, most famously the mighty Yukon River, carve through valleys blanketed in spruce and pine. Turquoise lakes, alpine tundra, and glaciers stretch as far as the eye can see, largely untouched by human hands. It's this raw, overwhelming scale of nature that draws travelers from around the world. Tourism here isn't about crowds or convenience. It's about connecting with the wild on a scale few other places on Earth can offer. Hiking through alpine valleys, spotting grizzly bears and caribou along riverbanks, or paddling remote rivers are all part of everyday life in Yukon. And when night falls, the northern lights dance overhead in one of the best places on the planet to witness them. Scattered across this vast wilderness are places that capture its spirit perfectly, destinations where nature reveals itself in its purest, most untamed form. 17 of Canada's 20 highest peaks rise inside a single park, tucked into the far southwest corner of the Yukon. At the center of it all stands Mount Logan, Canada's tallest mountain, its summit reaching nearly 20,000 feet into the sky. Around it spreads one of the largest non-polar ice fields on the planet, a frozen expanse quiet enough to hear your own breathing. For a short visit, though, don't expect to take in all of that at once. Most travelers get their first taste at Kathleen Lake, where a boardwalk trail skirts turquoise water, backed by the Kluane Range. Climb higher on the King's Throne Trail, and the valley opens into a natural amphitheater carved by glaciers over thousands of years. It's the kind of scenery that stays gentle rather than overwhelming, exactly what past visitors describe. Beautiful, but on a short trip, pleasant more than staggering. Dall sheep graze the slopes above the highway, sometimes close enough to watch through a spotting scope. This stretch of Yukon holds one of the highest concentrations of grizzly bears on the continent, while wood bison roam the wild country just beyond the park's eastern edge. Follow the shore of Kluane Lake north, and you reach Burwash Landing, one of the oldest settlements in the territory and home to the Kluane First Nation. Its small museum holds native wildlife displays and stories that stretch back generations, a quiet counterpoint to all the ice and stone around it. Kluane doesn't ask you to conquer it. It only asks you to look up. Before we head to the next spot, here's a fun question. Which animal is traditionally used to pull sleds in Yukon? Comment your answer. Not every capital is built the way Whitehorse was. This one grew out of a stampede. Thousands of gold seekers hauling boats and supplies past the roar of the Whitehorse Rapids in 1898. The water so wild it earned the town its name. Today, the Yukon River still runs right through the heart of the city. Calm now, dammed since 1958, but it's the same current that once decided who made it to the goldfields and who turned back. Whitehorse became the territorial capital in 1953, and downtown still carries that frontier layout. Walkable, compact, log buildings standing next to government offices. One traveler recently asked if Whitehorse is worth visiting without a car, and the honest answer is, it depends. The core is easy on foot, and a taxi can get you out to places like Miles Canyon. But once you're beyond downtown, public transit thins out fast. That's because the real draw here isn't the city, it's what surrounds it. Just 25 minutes outside Whitehorse, the Yukon Wildlife Preserve opens up 700 acres of boreal forest and wetland. No cages, no fences close enough to feel intrusive. Wood bison move through it like they've never left, because in the Yukon, they mostly haven't. Musk oxen, caribou, moose, mountain goats, thin-horn sheep, all sharing the same rolling terrain, alongside quieter residents like Arctic foxes and Canada lynx, an animal most visitors never expect to actually see. You can walk the 5-kilometer loop yourself, or ride the guided bus and let someone else spot the wildlife for you. Just don't expect a city bus to take you there. This is a place that asks you to arrange your own way in and rewards you for the effort. And true northern wilderness all sit within a few minutes of each other. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing destinations and unforgettable journeys. Somewhere in the Yukon, the mountains turn red, and locals will tell you they've never seen that color anywhere else in Canada. Tombstone Territorial Park, 2,200 square kilometers of raw wilderness cut by the Dempster Highway, about 90 minutes north of Dawson City. Its Han name means ragged mountain land, and one look at the jagged granite peaks tells you why. At its center stands Tombstone Mountain itself, a spire so sharp early travelers named it for a grave marker. This land carries deep history too. The Whitehorse have called it home and hunted its valleys for more than 8,000 years. Even the water here tells a story of division. Somewhere beneath these ridges, a hidden line splits the rivers, sending some toward the Bering Sea and others toward the Beaufort, far to the north. Every fall, the tundra ignites, deep reds, burnt oranges, turning these slopes into what many call the finest autumn color in the country. But size here comes with silence. The road runs long and empty, wildlife wanders freely, and for miles there's simply nothing else. For those chasing the park's crown jewel, an 11-kilometer trail climbs nearly 800 meters through talus slopes and alpine meadows to Grizzly Lake, a hard, full-day push rewarded by a basin ringed with rock spires. Spend the night there if you can, though a permit is required, and wake up surrounded by peaks that feel like they belong to another planet entirely. Come prepared. There's no cell signal, barely any traffic, and if something goes wrong out here, the nearest help is hours away. Pack emergency supplies before you go. Tombstone doesn't forgive carelessness. This is wilderness on its own terms, and it rewards those who respect it. We worked really hard to make these videos, and of course, your support is a huge motivation. If you love us, you can scan the QR code here to buy us a cup of coffee. Most people spend a lifetime in the wild without ever spotting a Canada lynx. "25 minutes from Whitehorse, the Yukon Wildlife Preserve turns that into a near certainty. 700 acres of boreal forest, wetland, and open meadow, laced together by a 5-kilometer loop. More than a dozen native northern species share this ground, each given a habitat built to mirror the wild just outside the fence. Wood bison anchor the place, North America's largest land mammal, bulls pushing close to 1,000 kilograms. Dark, shaggy coats and a hump set high and forward make them impossible to mistake for anything else in the boreal forest. Somewhere in the spruce, a pair of lynx keep to the same quiet corner, paws so broad they work like built-in snowshoes. Their favorite prey is the snowshoe hare, and where the hare goes, the lynx is rarely far behind. Nearby, the caribou carry something almost no other deer can claim. Both males and females here grow antlers, not just the bulls. The muskoxen wear one of the Arctic's oldest survival stories, a double coat with an undercoat called kivyut, finer than cashmere and up to 8 times warmer than wool. Thin-horned sheep carry their age in their horns, in rings called annuli, laid down one at a time across lives that can stretch past 2 decades. Mountain goats hold the preserve's highest ground, coats built thick and white to vanish into a Yukon winter. Fences aside, the preserve compresses an entire northern wilderness into one loop. Every animal here still wild, just closer than the Yukon usually allows. I'm curious, what time is it where you're watching from? And which country are you joining me from today? You don't expect to find a desert this far north. Yet here it is, resting quietly beneath the coastal mountains of the Yukon, where sand meets snow, almost within the same breath. This is the Carcross Desert, often called the smallest desert in the world, a mere 1 square mile of rolling dunes stretched out beneath peaks still streaked with snow even in summer. It isn't a true desert at all, technically speaking. Too much rain falls here for that classification to hold. What you're actually looking at is the sandy floor of a glacial lake left behind somewhere between 11 and 24,000 years ago, when the ice retreated and the water that once filled this valley disappeared along with it. Off nearby Bennett Lake still feeds the dunes today, grain by grain, carrying on the very same process that built them in the first place. The town beside it carries its own piece of history folded into its name, Caribou Crossing, shortened over time to Carcross, after the herds that once passed through here on their seasonal migration. Grizzly bears still move through these surrounding valleys, and porcupines find shelter in the pine forest that edges the sand. Some visitors arrive expecting the scale of the Sahara, and instead find something smaller, quieter, almost unassuming in comparison. But look closer, and footprints cut deep into the dunes everywhere, a quiet reminder of how easily a place this small can be worn down by the very people who come to see it. Fragile, unlikely, and still holding its shape, one gust of wind at a time. The river doesn't ask permission here. It just narrows and turns violent. Four islands of hard conglomerate rock, stubborn against the erosion that wore away everything softer around them, split the Yukon River into 5 channels, only one deep enough to pass. The rock remembers older water than this. Nearly 200 million years ago, this was a tidal flat at the edge of an inland sea. Now that same rock stands like a wall, forcing the current into a narrow, churning race. The northern Tuchone called this place Titicho Nadeje, rocks standing up in the water, a name older than any map of it. Nothing here was ever tamed. The river simply found the one gap it could fit through and never stopped pushing. Nothing here was tamed. It was only widened, just enough to let people through. North of Whitehorse, the Takhini River moves quietly east, unhurried, toward its meeting with the Yukon River. Locals here call it Nakhu-Chu, or Takhini, a name older than any highway that now runs beside it. It begins far upstream at Kusawa Lake in the Ibex Valley, where the water runs so clear you can watch it before you can hear it. Come winter, the Takhini freezes. Solid ice creeps in from the banks first, tightening around the current until only a dark ribbon of water still moves through the white. Spruce line both shores, standing close together, holding the snow on their branches like they've done it every winter for centuries. The Tlingit called it Takhini, King Salmon River, or the runs that once filled these waters every summer. In southern Tuchone, it's Nakhu-Chu, rafting across river, a name tied to the lake it flows from. Right now, none of that motion is visible. What's left is stillness, snow settling on ice, the forest standing guard on either side. Even frozen, the river doesn't fully surrender every winter, Part of its length becomes a stretch of the Yukon quest, mushers and dog teams crossing where paddlers once passed in summer. The cold doesn't stop the valley. It just slows it down long enough to notice. Somewhere under that ice, the current is still finding its way to the sea. Dawson City sits at the meeting point of the Klondike and Yukon Rivers, in a place so remote it seems the wilderness swallowed it whole. But for 3 short years, this was the center of the world. On August 16, 1896, Skookum Jim Mason, Dawson Charlie, and George Carmack found gold on a small creek that would soon carry a new name, Bonanza. Word spread slowly, then all at once. An estimated 100,000 people set out for the Klondike. Only about 30,000 actually made it. The journey demanded everything: frozen rivers, starvation, and the Chilkoot Pass, where prospectors carved 1,500 steps into snow and ice just to keep climbing. Those who survived built a town from nothing. In 2 years, Dawson's population exploded from 500 people to 30,000. Between 1896 and 1899, an estimated $29 million in gold came out of these creeks. Then, just as fast as it began, it was over. New gold in Nome, Alaska emptied the town almost overnight. Dawson never fully vanished, though. Today it stands as part of the Klondike UNESCO World Heritage Site, its wooden boardwalks and saloons still holding the shape of the rush that built. Some mountains soften with age. The Ogilvie Mountains never did after millions of years. Their peaks still look freshly broken. This range cuts through Yukon's remote interior, part of the Laramide Belt within the North American Cordillera, thrust up by forces still written into every ridge. Its most familiar summits carry sharp, jagged granite peaks, raw edges that never wore down the way older ranges do. The highest of them, Mount Frank Ray, climbs to 2,362 meters, and the range's best-known peaks rise within what's now Tombstone Territorial Park. One of them, Tombstone Mountain, earned its name from its own shape, a granite spire that looks unmistakably like a grave marker cut straight into the sky. By late summer, color spreads through the valleys below those peaks, crimson and gold moving across the tundra as autumn arrives early this far north. The Dempster Highway is the only road that crosses this country, a thin, narrow line cut through a landscape that otherwise answers to nothing and no one. Winters here are brutal enough to register among the coldest in Yukon, with temperatures dropping to nearly minus 57 degrees Celsius. The range takes its name from surveyor William Ogilvie, one of the first outsiders to put it on a map, though mapped barely covers a place this vast, this jagged, and this empty. The Ogilvie Mountains don't perform for visitors, and they never have. They've simply been standing here, exactly like this, for a very long time, and they'll go on standing long after the cameras are gone. If you've visited this place before, comment 1. If you haven't, comment 2. Snow presses down on these ridges for most of the year, heavy enough that the mountains barely change shape season to season. Below them, Bennett Lake runs about 42 kilometers from British Columbia into the Yukon, and in its deepest stretch, the water drops 123 meters straight down. In 1897, this shoreline held a different kind of weight, a tent city of thousands, gold rush prospectors building boats by hand to ride the current north toward Dawson City. That rush is long gone now, and the lake has gone quiet with it. Storms roll in fast here, and even now boats are a rare sight on water this large. At the north end, where Bennett Lake narrows into Nares Lake, the town of Carcross sits right at the edge. It was once called Caribou Crossing, named for herds that used to cross a natural land bridge between the two lakes. A steel bridge spans that same water today, close to where an original 1900 railway swing bridge once rotated open to let boats through. The White Pass and Yukon route line still runs along this shore, the same route that once linked Bennett to Skagway and Whitehorse. Color breaks through in small pieces, a red rooftop, a blue wall, scattered against all that white. As daylight fades, the sky over the lake turns from gray to a soft, unexpected pink. Bennett Lake sits at 656 meters above sea level, still fed by rivers with names like Watson and Wheaton, still draining north the same way it always has. This information was compiled from multiple sources. If there are any inaccuracies, please share your suggestions in the comments below. High in the mountains between Alaska and Canada, White Pass stands as one of the most breathtaking mountain crossings in the north. Once known as the Dead Horse Trail during the Klondike Gold Rush, this rugged passage bears witness to thousands who braved ice and rock in search of gold. As the train climbs toward the summit, steep granite cliffs, plunging gorges, and thundering waterfalls give way to a stark alpine world where snow can linger well into summer. The pass itself marks the gateway into the vast Yukon wilderness, where boreal forests, turquoise lakes, and endless horizons begin to unfold. Along the route, remnants of the original Gold Rush Trail and old trestle bridges still cling to the mountainside, quiet witnesses to those who once passed this way. Sit on the left side if you want to take in the sweeping views of the valley below. More than a scenic ride, White Pass is a living monument to Yukon's rugged history and untamed beauty. The Dempster Highway doesn't ease you in. It just goes, gravel and sky, for over 700 kilometers north. It's the only all-season road in Canada that crosses the Arctic Circle, and you feel that the moment the trees start thinning out. The route cuts through Tombstone Territorial Park, then climbs into the Ogilvie and Richardson Mountains, where the tundra opens up in every direction. Underneath it all is permafrost, so the road itself sits on a raised gravel berm, built up, not dug in, because if the ground below ever thawed, the highway would sink with it. Construction started back in 1959, and it took almost 2 decades of stops and starts before the road officially opened in 1979. There are no side roads out here. No power lines. No houses for long, long stretches. Two rivers still interrupt the route entirely, the Peel and the Mackenzie, crossed by ferry in summer and by ice bridges once they freeze solid in winter. Past travelers put it simply, pack extra snacks and water because there are only 2 real stops between here and Inuvik. The drive can take 10 to 14 hours if you don't stop, but almost no one drives it that way. This road is named after a mounted police corporal who once searched this same wilderness for men who never made it out. Every kilometer forward is a kilometer further from anything resembling backup. And still, it's considered one of the greatest road trips on Earth. Out here, an entire day can lose its own rules. The sun forgets to set, then for months forgets to rise. The Dempster Highway runs 740 kilometers north from Dawson City, gravel and washboard the whole way, until the tundra opens wide enough to swallow it whole. Below, rivers braid loose through open wetlands, carving soft channels across the green, spreading out like they have nowhere urgent to be. Ahead, the Richardson Mountains rise jagged and gray, worn down but never smoothed. Then the sign appears, 66 degrees 33 minutes north, the Arctic Circle, the edge of a different kind of world. That line isn't even fixed. It drifts about 15 meters a year, tracing the slow tilt of the planet's own axis. On June 21st, the summer solstice, this exact line is where a band of continuous daylight reaches its southern edge at midnight. By fall, the tundra turns rust and gold, low shrubs holding onto color the season won't keep for long. Spruce forest thins into open ground, and eventually the forest just stops, like it ran out of reasons to continue. Further along, ice takes over completely, glacier walls meeting fjords still rimmed in snow. Even in daylight, the color shifts fast here, pale morning fog burning into a pink and orange dusk within hours. The road itself barely changes. One straight line pressed into the valley floor, mountains stacked on either side like they're keeping watch. This is Canada's only all-season road to cross into the Arctic, and every kilometer feels like the country still deciding where it ends. For most of the year, the Yukon River isn't moving at all, locked white and silent under snow that runs to the tree line in every direction. Then the seasons turn. The same bends that sit frozen blue in winter turn glacier green by summer, then rust and gold once the birch along the banks changes color in fall. This is the longest river in Alaska and Yukon, 3,190 kilometers, starting as ice at the Llewellyn Glacier in British Columbia and ending in the Bering Sea. Along the way, its basin drains more than 854,000 square kilometers, over a quarter larger than the entire state of Texas. Near Whitehorse, the river narrows and turns turquoise, squeezed between basalt cliffs laid down by lava flows more than 8 million years old. Same river, completely different color. Downstream near Dawson City, smaller creeks still run rust red into the main channel, ground that's been turned over for placer gold since 1896. Dawson itself grew from a river-mouth trading post into a town of more than 30,000 people within 2 summers. Then it emptied out almost as fast once the easy gold ran out. Despite the river's length, only 4 bridges cross it anywhere along its route. In Dawson, winter holds the river for about 7 months before it finally breaks apart each spring, and 3,190 kilometers later, all of it, ice included, ends up in the Bering Sea. Winter doesn't soften Lake Laberge, it locks it. For nearly 50 kilometers, this stretch of the Yukon River freezes over, the ice sitting above water so cold that even in summer it never really warms. In places, the lake drops almost 150 meters below that frozen surface, a depth you'd never guess just looking at the white going on for miles. Long before any of this had a name in English, the southern Tutchone people gathered here and called it Ta'an Mun, head of the lake. Later, it earned a different kind of fame. This is the lake Robert Service wrote into The Cremation of Sam McGee, the poem that still shapes how people picture it. Then the sun drops and the real show starts. From mid-August through mid-April, the sky above this frozen stretch of the Yukon turns into one of the clearest aurora canvases on the continent. Somewhere between 10 at night and 3 in the morning, the green begins to move, slow at first, then folding over itself above the ice. No city glow to dilute it. No sound to interrupt it. Just a frozen lake and a sky that looks like it's rewriting itself. Kusawa Lake stretches 75 kilometers through the mountains of southern Yukon, but it's never more than 2.5 kilometers wide. The name says it best. In Tlingit, Kusawa means narrow lake. From above, that narrowness is the whole story, a thin ribbon of water threading between snow-covered ridges instead of spreading into anything wider. In winter, ice locks most of the surface white, but a dark channel of open water still cuts through the middle, refusing to freeze completely. The lake sits at 671 meters above sea level, fed by the Primrose and Kusawa rivers, and drains north through the Takhini into the Yukon River system. It's glacial in origin, carved into a landscape it still resembles. For centuries, this narrow corridor served as a trade route for the Tlingit, a natural path through mountains that otherwise offered none. Even now, at first light, the ice catches the same gold the open water once did, a lake that spends half the year pretending to be land. The sun doesn't so much set here as slide behind one ridge after another. This is Ibex Valley, named for the mountain that guards its southern edge. Ibex Mountain doesn't hold the line alone. Mount Arkell and Mount Ingram close off the west side, Mount Sumanik and Mount Williams the east. The valley runs some 30 kilometers, north at first, then bending northwest into a flatter, wider stretch. Snow smooths out all of it. Down in the trees, the Takhini River carves its way east, born out of Kusawa Lake and bound for the Yukon River. Even folded under ice, its water is known for running crystal clear. The Alaska Highway runs beside it for miles, one of the only signs that anyone passes through at all. Most of the valley stays untouched, coniferous forest and open grassland, climbing toward the subalpine. There's no town center here, no cluster of lights, just forest, river, and the long white shoulder of the range. Ibex Valley doesn't hurry to be found. By evening, the highway, the river, the trees, and the stone all fold under the same low winter light. 15 kilometers southwest of Whitehorse, the ridges open into a valley, the glaciers carved from the inside out. This is Fish Lake, Wu Zil Man, 11.5 kilometers of frozen water pinned between Mount Granger and the volcanic cone of Ibex Mountain. From above, it looks less like a lake and more like a long white seam stitched through the forest. The valley sits above 1,100 meters, high enough that snow claims it long before it reaches Whitehorse below. Ridge after ridge folds outward from the shoreline, each one catching its own light as the sun drops low. Fish Creek and Porter Creek carry the meltwater north into the Yukon River. In southern Tuchone, Wu Zil Man means Whitefish Lake, named for the fish that spawn along its shallows every fall. This ground belongs to the Kwanlin Dune First Nation, who have moved through it for thousands of years. Old foot trails still trace the high ground, routes that once reached as far as Alaska and British Columbia. By late afternoon, the ice borrows the color of the sky, gold at the edges, blue toward the center. In summer, this same lake runs dark and deep. By winter, it turns blinding white, edge to edge. Every ridge, every frozen bay, belongs to one valley, still shaped by the ice that made it. Winter strips this lake down to something almost architectural. Kathleen Lake sits in Yukon's Kluane National Park, just south of Haines Junction, backed by the peaks of the Kluane Range. The southern Tachone people call it Mat-Atana Man, something frozen inside the lake, and in January, that name stops being poetic and starts being literal. At 731 meters above sea level, it's the largest lake entirely within the park's boundaries, spread across nearly 3,400 hectares. Beneath that ice, the water drops to 111 meters at its deepest point, deep enough to stay unfrozen at the bottom all winter, sheltering kokanee salmon that live out their entire lives without ever reaching the sea. From above, the shoreline forest looks stitched into the snow, black spruce holding their color while everything else turns white. Kluane holds 17 of Canada's 20 highest peaks, and here their lower slopes lean straight into the frozen shore with no transition at all. Somewhere above the lake, hidden in this range, is King's Throne, a glacial amphitheater carved into the rock, the kind of scale you only sense once you're standing in it. This whole region, Kluane, and the ice fields connecting it to Alaska's Wrangell St. Elias and Glacier Bay, was named a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1979, one continuous wilderness crossing an international border. But none of that explains what it feels like to watch a lake this still hold a mountain this large in its surface and not move at all. Kathleen Lake doesn't announce anything about itself in winter. It just waits, frozen and exact, until spring asks it to move again. For thousands of miles, there's nothing but forest, mountains, and this one road. The Alaska Highway runs 2,232 kilometers from Dawson Creek through the Yukon to Delta Junction, Alaska. It wasn't always this short. When U.S. Army engineers finished it in 1942, the route stretched nearly 2,700 kilometers, later straightened and shortened as sections were rebuilt. 16,000 workers pushed it through in 8 months, no permission asked. The land simply had a road cut through it, and it's been finding its way back around the edges ever since. Rivers still run wild beside the pavement, cutting new channels through gravel bars every season. Forests turn from deep green to gold along the shoulders each fall, a shift no engineer accounted for. The road hasn't tamed this place. It's just the one thin line that gets to pass through it. This is the Yukon, where the raw freedom and untamed majesty made this northern wilderness one of the last true frontiers on Earth, a place that doesn't just welcome the bold, but demands their respect. In here, the silence is deafening, yet every gust of wind carries the whispers of gold rush dreamers and indigenous legends who walked these grounds long before us. From the endless summer days to the star-filled winter nights, Yukon teaches us that nature is still the greatest storyteller of all. It is a place that challenges you, humbles you, and ultimately leaves you forever changed, carrying a piece of its wild soul in your heart. Until the next adventure calls, this is the Yukon, forever vast, forever wild, and forever waiting.